Let's take a look at business now, as the 13th meeting of African trade ministers concluded in Durban this week with one goal in mind: to deepen working relations for completion of African Continental Free Trade Area protocols. The gathering also saw a significant milestone in the implementation of AfCFTA in the SADC region. Newzroom Afrika's business reporter Ntokozo Khumalo has the story.
The wheels of trade have been turning slowly on the continent. Figures from the United Nations shows intra-Africa trade at a measly 14% in 2023. It further finds that the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement could boost trade by up to 33% and cut the continent's trade deficit by 51%. AfCFTA Secretary General Wamkele Mene told ministers responsible for trade that expectations to deliver are high.
The work that you generate, that you produce, the protocols, have raised expectations of Africans about what is possible and what we in the AfCFTA have been able to achieve in a relatively short space of time. Because of that significant progress, expectations are very high.
AfCFTA's chair, 4 ministers responsible for trade, and Tanzania's trade minister, Ashatu Kijaji, highlights that to speed the milestones along, the ministers need to work more closely together and invite other vital stakeholders.
The Minister of Trade, we have agreed that we have to increase the rates of the meetings between us as Ministers of Trade, identify the non-trade barriers, try to remove them as soon as they emerge, but also dealing with the tariff barriers. That's why last year we had a discussion on seeing how we can include the finance ministers in our meetings.
This year also saw South Africa launch its first shipments of proudly South African products destined for Kenya and Ghana, a move that the country's Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Ibrahim Patel, says is significant for trade in the SADC region and the continent at large.
If you think about the long history of the African continent, it's been one where others determined our future for something like 300 years. Colonialism left deep scars. But there's a moment at which we need to take responsibility and agency and say that we've got to use freedom to change our own story. As long as we sell raw materials to the rest of the world, we're going to be dependent on aid and support from others. But when we say that we've got the young people on the African continent that can be entrepreneurial, they can be innovative, they've got skills that they're developing at university and college, let's make Africa a continent that works, that manufactures, that does things. But to do that, we need to trade more with each other also.
President Cyril Ramaphosa launched the first shipments of South African products under the African Continental Free Trade Area's preferential trade to the rest of the continent. Ramaphosa says this first shipment from Transnet's Durban port is a milestone for the continent.
This shipment demonstrates that the African Continental Free Trade Area has become a reality.
The shipment is filled with products from 18 South African businesses. Many highlighted that preferential trade puts South Africa and the rest of the region back on track for improved intra-Africa trade.
Opportunities, real commercially meaningful opportunities, are created through supplier development schemes with larger corporations and enabling smaller corporations to be part of the value chains. So we are indeed at a very, very historic moment.
The launch was also attended by ministers from the continent, including Kenya, Namibia, Botswana and Eswatini. Nairobi will also soon be bringing more of its tea and coffee to South Africa, while Namibia will trade more in fish and meat. The Kingdom of Eswatini plans to penetrate the rest of the region with sugar exports. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Ntokozo Khumalo in Durban.